Mr. Khan.
Mr. President, Your Honours, Mr. Ruto has waited quite a while to put forward the truth, and we welcome this opportunity to blow away, hopefully, some of the cobwebs of confusion, the deceptions, the errors, and the misconceptions that have so woefully befallen the prosecutor in her investigations. At the outset, Your Honours, it is only appropriate to pay testament to all the people of Kenya, from the coast to the west, from the north to the south, everybody who felt or was touched by the awful events of 2007 until 2008. Any survivor, anybody who has had to withstand any kind of bereavement or awfulness and yet carried on the next day to live is a hero. And in this courtroom, a lot will be heard, and I appreciate the balanced submissions by my learned friend, Mr. Naderu. But, Your Honours, the whole life of Mr. William Ruto, his passion, his commitment, his objectives, his spirit, has been his testament for a brighter Kenyan future. A cohesive, united Kenya, marching forward not as a disparate group of ethnic communities, but as one people under one flag. Your Honours, when I walked into court this morning, I noticed there was a lot of press, obviously, and there was a bit of a frisson, a bit of excitement. Of course, the Deputy Head of State coming into the ICC, a lot of interest in Kenya and internationally. The first time ever in the annals of international criminal law that a serving Head of State and Deputy Head of State has voluntarily, whilst in office, come before the court and bowed his head to justice in the expectation that justice will be done. It's not a small event. It's a very notable achievement. And the person with the greatest of respect that deserves an awful lot of applause for that approach is the client that I have the honour of representing. But, Your Honour, one cannot escape the reality that this investigation has been exceptionally deficient. Your Honour, one day, after this case is over, either withdrawn or dropped or not guilty verdicts entered, there will have to be an inquiry, whether it's a judicial commissioned inquiry or an inquiry by the Assembly of State Parties regarding how on earth was it that despite the safeguards that the drafters of the Rome Statute put in place when deciding upon Article 15 proprium motu powers, the safeguard of a pretrial chamber, how was it that somebody innocent, I'm not saying not guilty, somebody innocent has come before this court to answer charges that will be shown to be patently false? Your Honour, the prosecutor has characterized this case by, in the words, it's the product of long and difficult investigations. But, Your Honour, from the prosecution's own evidence, we will show that these investigations by her predecessor's office, I'm not putting the blame at Madam Fatou Bensouda's door alone, it was the former prosecutor, Louis Mourinho Ocampo, that must take an awful lot of blame for the systemic failings of this office that still bedevil the OTP today. But, Your Honour, from the prosecution's own office evidence, we can argue and show that the investigations were completed targeting Mr. William Ruto before this court before the judges of this ICC even authorized investigations. That is a remarkable state of affairs. And it's not rhetoric by the defense. That is what the evidence of the prosecutor will establish and show in this present case. Your Honour, I heard my learned friend, Madam Fatou Bensouda, state today that she will prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. Your Honours, that's of course a matter that Your Honours will decide in due course. But I couldn't help but recall that only yesterday, not even 24 hours ago, I had the honour of attending a press conference that she was giving. And Madam Fatou Bensouda was asked not once, not twice, at least 3 times, whether or not she had a strong case. And what's remarkable is that she declined to answer. She declined to answer to the journalists who were asking free-range questions that, yes, she was confident she had the right man, she was confident the case had proper foundations, and that she was confident that she would prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. Your Honours, it was said once in England that 24 hours is a long day in politics. But, Your Honour, quite a metamorphosis in less than 24 hours from my learned friend who prosecutes this case. Your Honour, a lot of talk about the political dynamics of Kenya. The ODM, the PNU, and all the rest of it. But, Your Honour, perhaps with all this talk of oranges, bananas, it's only fair, and forgive me, the prosecution have slipped on a few banana skins on the way. They've got it so obviously wrong, for reasons that I'll come to in my opening. Your Honour, William Ruto sets the example, sets the benchmark, sets the standard about what it is to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk in relation to belief, commitment, and conviction in relation to international justice. It's very easy, it's far too easy for somebody in the comfort of an armchair or on a TV studio pontificating, all those lawyers, all political analysts, about the rights of the law. But until one is in the crosshairs, until one is faced with the most awful allegations, it's very difficult to see how one would react. But, Your Honour, Mr. William Ruto has acted in an exemplary fashion. And, Your Honour, as this case unravels, and it's already started to unravel, witnesses are not here, witnesses have withdrawn, the case will adjourn tomorrow until Tuesday for want of prosecution witnesses. I don't want Your Honours, or anybody in this courtroom, or anybody watching, to be under any illusion why those witnesses are withdrawn, why they're dropped, why witnesses don't come. Your Honours, we say that there is a rotten underbelly of this case that the prosecutor has swallowed hook, line, and sinker, indifferent to the truth, all too eager to latch on to any version, any account, any story that somehow ticks the boxes that we have to tick in relation to putting forward a summons or putting forward a confirmation hearing, completing an IDAC chart. Your Honour, no semblance to reality at all. And, Your Honour, I've said it before. I've said it in Kenya. It's been carried by the press, not once, not twice, many more times. And I say it today with Mr. William Ruto behind me, for all the millions of people in Kenya to see and hear, with his authority, on his instructions. We do not want witnesses to withdraw. We want witnesses to come and be free to speak to the prosecution and to the defence, to speak the truth. And those that come to this court and speak the truth are heroes. Those that are willing to speak without inducement or coercion, without fear or favor, but simply because they're motivated by this most lofty human principle that the truth has a value. Justice has a value, even though I may not benefit or the witness may not benefit. That is one of the hallmarks of civilization and the progress of man. Those witnesses should be left alone to speak to the prosecution and the defense, and any attempts by any party, any political interest groups, any NGO, any cabal should be deprecated in the strongest possible terms. And Your Honours, we put the court on notice, we put the people of Kenya on notice that those that are willing to speak the truth, there are full protective measures available to the prosecution and the defense. The court will pay proper regard to the dignity of witnesses. Nobody has anything to fear. But those that think that there's a foreign court in a foreign land that can be easily deceived, that they can spin a yarn that will entrap an innocent man, should be aware that this court can arrest and detain anybody who seeks to pervert the course of justice. Your Honour, no system of law anywhere in the world can operate with lying witnesses, with a culture where people can feel as a shortcut to a better life, they may think. They can lie. Your Honour, as we see, I've done hundreds of asylum cases domestically. We know the reality that many asylum cases that one looks at, there are those that properly come within the 1951 Refugee Convention that have a well-founded fear of persecution, and there are many, and one's heart also goes out to them, that are driven by economic motivations. One cannot close one's eyes to human nature and the fact that many witnesses, many individuals, many people may be motivated by similar incentives. And Your Honours will need to be exceptionally vigilant in this case to unravel and unmask what we say is a very clear and glaring conspiracy of lies and woeful inadequacies by the OTP. Your Honour, William Ruto, contrary to sound bites and press statements and unfair tarnishing that's been going along for far too long, has been a supporter of this court. His plea has been give the court space. Your Honour, I will seek to play a video. It's from October 2009. So well before Mr. Ruto was named as a suspect, well before the court was even authorized to commence investigations in Kenya. And contrary to my learned friend, her contentions that somehow there's foul play, there's something dodgy, Mr. Ruto put forward what can only be described as a model, mature, responsible, and hopeful vision of the ICC. Let's hear what Mr. Ruto says.
I become part of the solution.
There's talk in the papers that Ocampo could be coming about a week after Kofi Annan leaves.
Yes.
His coming is also sending jitters through the corridors of power because he may come, he's been doing his own investigations, obviously, and you could be on that list. What if you're on his list, Mheshimiwa? Then what? What happens then?
Then nothing. I mean, it doesn't bother me. And I don't think we should create an unnecessary hype about Ocampo. Ocampo has been employed by the ICC to do a job. And if Ocampo is coming here to do investigations, please, by all means, let's give him the support to do the investigations, because what this country needs is fairness. We need to do thorough, credible investigations so that we can get to the bottom of this problem. And we should give Ocampo, and indeed any other arm of government, our police force, our criminal investigations department, our NSIS, give them the support they need to help us sort out our problem. We must not necessarily look at Ocampo coming into town as a miracle worker. He is not going to change anything in our country. Yeah. He is going to help make his contribution towards investigations that would help us unravel the perpetrators, the planners, the schemers, and the financiers of the post-election violence. Yeah.
And also the second extract.
And we need a thorough, fair, balanced investigations. And indeed, if there will be people who will be found with evidence that they participated in planning, in executing, in financing the post-election violence, surely, as any country that believes in rule of law would expect, those people should face the law. And I think that any citizen who believes in the rule of law and believes they have nothing to hide should welcome the coming of Ocampo. What citizens, including myself, would not want is a process like the one Waki engaged in to cook up stories, peddle lies, concoct falsehood, and try and pin it on people. We want a credible process. And if William Ruto, for whatever, there is an iota of evidence that he participated in planning and in financing, surely William Ruto should face the law, like any other citizen should face the law.
Your Honour, that was the comment, that was the view, that was the stance of William Ruto before the summons. It was his view before investigations were authorised, and not only did he uphold and hope that the prosecutor's office would discharge their statutory responsibilities, despite the fact that they haven't, he has still respected this court. Your Honour, the hope of many victims in Kenya was that we would get to the bottom of what happened in 2007, 2008. Yesterday, I was at a press conference, as I mentioned, and His Excellency, the Registrar, spoke. And he said, well, to answer to one question, we'll know by the end of the trial who is responsible for the post-election violence in Kenya. Your Honour, were that the case, if only that was true. But the reality is, the only thing we'll know at the end of this process is who was not responsible for the post-election violence. And that's because the victims have been so poorly served. They've been so poorly served in the investigations of this case. Because, Your Honour, what the prosecutor did, what Mr. Ocampo did, is latch onto an infected information stream. It was convenient. It was easy. It may even be described as lazy prosecution, lazy investigations. But it didn't have regard to the source of the information. He didn't have regard to the various undercurrents that exist in any sophisticated democracy or in Kenya. And because of that, the prosecution was swept along to drown in an ocean of their own making of errors, relying upon a drip of evidence that selectively they have sought to put out, without any regard for the fact that the source of those drops is from a very polluted spring. They've been fed a lie. Your Honour, the massive failings of the prosecution and the dashed hopes of the Kenyans that my learned friend purported to care so much about and represent is also what has led to this sad state of affairs. Your Honour, it was never anticipated by the drafters of the Rome Statute, in my view, that a prosecutor would simply import the archives of another domestic process, blind or oblivious to the defects of that commission. But that's what the prosecutor did. Mr. Ocampo, maybe it was a rush to name people before Christmas of 2010, maybe it was a rush to have a confirmation hearing before he left, maybe it was just ineptitude. But for whatever reason, the result was a travesty of justice. Your Honor, let me play another video clip from Citizen Television, November 2010, before Mr. Ocampo gave his 15th of December Christmas present to the famous Ocampo 6.
The ICC is certainly not just going to rely on our information or the work information. As a prosecutor, Mr. Moreno Ocampo must also do his own investigations. That is what a prosecutor does.
Your Honor, that's what a prosecutor should do. Unfortunately, it is not what a prosecutor did in this case. And the results have been dire. But, Your Honor, it's easy to believe in the rule of law, as I said, when one is not a target, when one is a bystander. But what was the reaction of William Ruto once he was named by Luis Mourinho Ocampo, who had come to make a lesson of Kenya? Your Honor, let me play an extract from the 5th of April 2011. Your Honor, that's 2 days before the initial appearance, and it's filmed in Kenya.
Mheshimiwa, you're heading to The Hague. First of all, when that list came out, and you saw the names on the left side and the 3 names on the right side, were you as shocked as the rest of us, or did you know all along that your name had been bandied around?
The one thing that all of us expected is that there would be credible, independent investigations into this process. And I want to tell you, Jeff, that if there were, and if there will ever be, credible, independent investigations, my name should not be on that list. But as things stand now, I am supposed to stand in The Hague on the 7th, which I will, to demonstrate and to prove my innocence. Of course, it is not the role of the mill issues. You know, we are talking about being accused of crimes against humanity. Thousands of Kenyans died. The specific charges against me are that I distributed 3,000 guns and hand grenades and money, and I had an army with commanders and things like those. Jeff, things that can only be possible in a movie. It cannot be in reality. As an opposition member of parliament in 2007, it would take a miracle. You know, I would have to have powers of an angel to be able to assemble 3,000 guns, be able to have cylinders, be able to have an army, to be able to do the kind of things they are saying I did. But be that as it may, I guess we have to now deal with the situation as it is, go to The Hague, and deal with the matters as they are at the moment.
Yeah.
And the next one immediately, please.
I have told you the kind of things that I am accused of having done is not possible in Kenya. It's only possible, I have told you, in a movie.
In Hollywood?
It's just in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You cannot... My house, for example, is exactly 2 kilometers from an AP station where the DO stays. My house is exactly maybe 4.5 kilometers from a whole police station. My friend, an opposition member of parliament cannot assemble 3,000 guns 2 kilometers from an administration police camp complete with a DO, and 4 kilometers away from a police station, and you know, operate. It's not reasonable,
Yeah.
right? But you know, because we are engaged in a movie, or I don't know what it is, I guess we have to move along and try and prove our innocence.
Your Honour, that is the approach of William Ruto. And, Your Honour, it's very easy for any party today, myself included, to say anything. The prosecutor can call black white and white black, and the same for me. But one day, these proceedings, well, even now, these proceedings are being analysed, they're being looked over, they're being reviewed, they're being commentated upon by fair people and those with agendas alike. But, Your Honour, a day will come when the work of this court will be scrutinised, not in the heat of the moment or in an environment where the ICC OTP was establishing itself in its first 10 years, made mistakes and was not perfect, and indeed had very serious maladies that afflict it. It will be looked at objectively. And, Your Honour, we've all been let down. I've been let down. I believe in international justice. Mr. Ruto has been let down. He believes in international justice. The victims that hope for justice have been let down. The office of the prosecutor, as opposed to the incumbents that hold that position, have been let down. It's a very sad state of affairs. And why do I say that? Your Honours, if the most basic investigations had taken place, the prosecutor would not have got us all into this mess. Your Honours, going back to what I said, Campo concluded his investigations. He named the target before even investigations were authorised. That tells a tale in and of itself. Preset, prepackaged, and all the rest of it. And what happened thereafter is that it seems to us, we look forward to questioning the OTP investigator in due course with the leave of the chamber. But thereafter, it seems that people are out on a mission to get evidence that would meet somehow, squeeze it into the box, however uncomfortable, however ill-fitting, however bizarre, squeeze an account into a box with the imperative of get Ruto. Get these cases. We want to name these 6, 3, 3. And in assessing the veracity of that argument, it's not without consequence that out of these 6 that the prosecutor, Luis Mourinho Ocampo, so boldly announced on the 15th of December 2010, 3 have already failed. The OTP has been shown in the Kenya case alone to be wrong more than half the time, or at least half the time. And those assurances for the summons, those assurances in this court at confirmation, are shown to be false. Black is white, white is black, easy for counsel to say, but judges will decide the truth in due course. But the reality is 50% has failed. Your Honour, why do I say the most basic investigations? Because they portray Mr. Ruto in the most hideous light. A violent person who hates Kikuyus, who wants to ethnically cleanse Kikuyus and non-Kalenjins from the North Rift. Did they pause for a moment and look at the electoral list of Eldoret? Did they pause for a moment and see that it is a diverse community of Kisii and Luhya, as well as Kalenjins? Did they pause and look that in the 2007 elections, in the whole of Kenya, the person who got the most votes, more than any other member of parliament, was William Ruto, from an electorate that was diverse? And Your Honour, did they look at the electoral system of Kenya and Eldoret North even that constituency, one would have hoped they would have dusted off the covers of the electoral list and looked at the electoral history? Did they think that in the past, never before in the history of Kenya, had any member of parliament been elected twice? That nobody had even been re-elected once after the first time. But William Ruto had been elected not once, not twice, but 3 times with the highest votes in the whole of Kenya. Did that not factor into their equations as to why on earth would he attack the community that had given him such massive majorities every single time, made up from all ethnic groups and all the rest? Your Honour, you heard William Ruto, and this was available to the prosecutor before confirmation. Did they not look, hear or investigate, go on YouTube where these interviews are, do investigations in Sugoi where his home is, and note that all the police infrastructure in that area was headed by Kikuyus? The OCPD, Kalenjin? No, not Kalenjin. Kikuyu. The DO, Kikuyu, the district officer, and the DC, Kikuyu. Was that not significant that if in their midst, almost hearing distance away, big meetings with loudspeakers and all the rest of it, would an opposition member of parliament have been inciting hatred, inciting violence, inciting killing? Or is it that their witnesses are that are alleging that, absolute fabricators and liars? We say it's the latter. Because what motivates the man before you, the man that comes for justice? The prosecution contort the truth and say he has a thirst for power. I will show, in our respectful submission, in the course of this very opening, how bizarre and false an assertion that is. How bizarre and false an assertion that is. But did they stop and look? This man who hates Kikuyus, this man that wishes to ethnically cleanse the North Rift, this man who has a thirst of power, that his 2 sisters, Tekla and Triza, are both married to Kikuyus? That they are both married to Kikuyus. Did they know that? Or did they think, we won't investigate because we've latched on to a very convenient box of evidence given by Waki? Whatever the faults of that investigation were, whatever the infections were, we're going to rely upon that. Easy pickings. The court will confirm, we'll get a trial, and that's what's important. Your Honour, the nieces and nephews from those marriages, the nieces and nephews of Mr. Ruto, do not have Kalenjin names, they have Kikuyu names. Is that of no significance to the prosecution opposite in their search for the truth, the mindset, the principles, the passion, the vision of Mr. William Ruto? Apparently not. The fact that not now, not after the PEV, years ago, he had given these sisters land in Sugoi. He pays for those children's education. So is it really realistic, as the prosecutor said? Is it truthful? Is it truthful that there he is in his home with a Kikuyu, with his family with Kikuyus, with mixed blood in the family and his nieces and nephews with Kikuyu names, and there he is saying, all Kikuyus, out, you're no longer wanted, you'll be kicked out, you'll be killed. Is that truth or is that falsehood? Is that truth or is that falsehood? Your Honour, in assessing the veracity of the prosecution case, you will have the opportunity on various occasions to glimpse the truth. My submission to you is that you're getting the truth today from us. with the greatest of regret, you're not getting the truth from the prosecution when it comes to the responsibility of William Ruto. You may be getting the truth that people suffered. We don't deny that. And, Your Honours, I should say there that, and to the legal representative of the victims and the people of Kenya, that William Ruto was elected into office only, I think it was in March of this year. And just on Saturday, 3 more IDP camps were closed by the President and Deputy President of Kenya, the Mahio camp, the Nakuru camp, and in Eldoret. So give them a chance, Your Honours, but work is being done. These are not individuals, and this is not a man before you that is callous or hard-hearted or does not care about the people of Kenya. That is his raison d'etre. That's his reason for being in politics, to improve their lot. But, Your Honour, lest it be said by my learned friend that somehow, okay, the family of William Ruto are in a different category for whatever reason, the fact that he would allow and not mind and support his sisters to marry Kikuyus, and the fact that he looks after nieces and nephews, more than 7 of them, that are Kikuyu and have Kikuyu names. Leave that aside. It's inconvenient. It's a hurdle. We don't have to deal with that. How will we respond to it, Madam Prosecutor would say? Your Honour, they haven't looked at the evidence. They haven't bothered. They've been lazy. The person who looked after and ran the public address system at the house where William Ruto is said to have incited people to kill was none other than a Kikuyu, a third party.
Mr. Kat, sorry, I did not want to interrupt you, but we have to be mindful of the time. We will be adjourning at 1, just so you know.
I'm grateful, Your Honour.
You were saying that the person who ran the public address system, okay.
That person is none other than a Kikuyu. And I saw with surprise and a bit of shock this network document generated by the, what's it called? The Scientific Response Unit, SRU, whatever that is, but nothing scientific about it. It's really a absolutely wrongly called name. It's not scientific. But anyway, whatever this document is. But this is the problem of the whole OTP case. Firstly, leaving aside the fact that it's wrong, let's just look at some issues. Henry Koski mentioned as a part of this network. Your Honours will decide how fair that is. It's one thing mentioning individuals as non-indicted co-perpetrators. That's one thing. But it's quite another including somebody on a list that an independent judge of the ICC says that there is not sufficient evidence to go to trial. I think it's very unfair. It's character assassination. In fact, that individual is in a worse position in many ways than if they're in trial, because at least then Mr. Koski would have a lawyer speaking on his behalf. So if this is going to be allowed on every point for the prosecutor to tarnish people's names when judges of this court have said those people, there is not evidence against those people, I think it's rather repugnant to any sense of fairness at all. And it's a real issue in this case and perhaps even in case number 2. But, Your Honour, looking at this SRU-created document, you also see Jackson Kibor. He's mentioned. Well, Your Honour, he's interviewed by the OTP. Why on earth? I mean, it's very difficult for prosecutors. I know. I've been one. I've been one domestically. It's very difficult. And you don't have a right to cross-examine an individual, an accused. You're lucky as a prosecutor if an accused decides to sit in that chair and say, shoot me. Ask me anything, and the court will decide my credibility. But there they have Jackson Kibor, who they put forward as this linchpin of this whole network. And why? Why didn't they ask? Why didn't they put the various allegations to him? Why? Article 54, dead and buried. And there may be a time, Your Honours, again, after this case, it's too late for Mr. Ruto, he's come too far, that the OTP may wish to appoint an independent lawyer, or not a lawyer under the prosecutor in every case, whose only job it is to research and investigate exonerating material in order to show how real are the efforts to discharge the Article 54 responsibility. It's not it shouldn't be relegated into an inconvenience of the prosecution. Your Honour, I don't know if it's SRU or Stitch Ruto Up. Maybe that's the more appropriate acronym for the Scientific Response Unit, Stitch Ruto Up, because anybody, and particularly even now children with the technological devices, can do wonderful things on computers. I've seen my own children, fantastic. But Your Honour, presenting something on PowerPoint, it doesn't make it so. It simply falls down. And what that network is, it's evidence of a desperate attempt by the prosecution to pursue Mr. Ruto by any means whatsoever. Your Honour, before I leave that topic, and again, it's really, if it wasn't so serious, it would be hilarious. If the consequence was not so found to Mr. Ruto and Mr. Ruto's family and the whole international legal firmament and all of us that want a credible ICC and an effective and proper and diligent OTP, it would be hilarious. Your Honours, even now they don't get it right, because my learned friend stated that the 2005 referendum was all about issues of land ownership and that the Kikuyus and Kalenjin took opposite positions. That's what they said, not once, twice. That's false. In the 2005 referendum, the man that the prosecution called the king of the Kikuyus, it's not me, it's the prosecution called him in case 2 because it's convenient. It's convenient for them in case 2 to describe him as that. The king of the Kikuyus, Uhuru Kenyatta, he was the one on the no side. He was on the same side as William Ruto. So when the prosecution even haven't grasped that reality, that 2005 was not ethnic, that it was Uhuru, it was Raila Odinga, it was ODM, it was William Ruto and others against the constitution that was being put forward, and Kibaki and the government in power was on the yes side, you'd think, well, maybe they understand that basic reality. There may be a chance they'll get other things right. When they haven't even got the basic things right, how on earth can we trust this prosecution? How on earth can we trust the evidence they put forward? And how confident can Your Honours be regarding the diligence and the vigour and the rigour with which the prosecution have conducted their investigations? Investigations that I, with regret, can only describe as apathetic, insufficient, derisory, and an insult to all people that believe in a viable institution. Your Honour, they seek to say that the elections was about race. Your Honour, the prosecution showed a video. The prosecution showed a video which showed William Ruto, and they said that was just after he was being anointed as an elder in the Kalenjin community. But Your Honour, who was there in that picture with him? Was it all Kalenjin? And by the way, Raila Odinga and also Honourable Kibaki, all of those individuals have been honoured as elders of the Kalenjin community at one time or the other. But Your Honour, in that picture, let me show you a photograph. The ODM at the time was not a sectarian divide. It was not a preserve of the Kalenjins. It was not a vehicle to pursue a xenophobic, racist agenda that the prosecution would have you believe. Your Honour, look at the photograph before you. Who do we have? We have Raila Odinga, Elua. William Ruto, of course, the Kalenjin. We have Najib Balala from the Coast Province. We have Joe Nyaga from Central Province. We have the lady. We have Musalia Mudavadi, who's a Luya. This is representative of the people of Kenya, not a small divide, not a province. This is representative of all the people of Kenya. Your Honours will see that list. Added to that list was a Kamba, Miss Charity Gilu. Your Honours, how does this square with the prosecution's assertion of some kind of racist, xenophobic William Ruto. It's simply not true. It's a contortion, and an ugly contortion of reality. Your Honour, one of the reasons in the preparatory commissions and in the evolution and the developments and the conferences that led to the signing of the Rome Statute, one of the concerns was, how do you reconcile the need for an independent prosecutor with preventing a rogue prosecution? How do you have a viable court system that will allow judicial scrutiny, but where the prosecutor is not giving orders from state parties? And a very proper, very needful and necessary discussion. And what was decided, of course, was Article 15. But, Your Honour, in all cases, however they start, there is really a terrible and also wonderful responsibility that falls on the shoulders of the prosecutor and deputy prosecutor. It's terrible because, of course, one is dealing with terrible allegations everywhere they work. Very profound crimes take place that shock the conscience of the world, or whatever cliche you want to use on it. They're terrible, awful crimes. They make you sad. Put it in the simplest terms. But it's wonderful because it's an opportunity to do justice. It's a wonderful vocation because you have the opportunity to get it right, to look out for evidence. Don't take instructions from somewhere else. Don't do shortcuts, but try to get to the truth, because what could be a more wonderful way of spending one's life than prosecuting those people that have committed such heinous wrongs? But, Your Honours, there is a massive responsibility that comes because this is a foreign court. It's bad enough that when miscarriages of justice take place domestically, and there's always a massive outcry. It's happened in all systems. There's miscarriages of justice. But, Your Honour, I do caution that this court, dealing with foreign nationals, dealing with often highly polarized political divides, has an even more acute sense of responsibility to make sure procedures are in place so that the prosecution gets it right. Because, Your Honour, leaving aside, and I can speak for hours on it, but, Your Honour, leaving aside the massive effects of Kenya, the constitutional issues, leaving aside the confidence of the international community in the ICC, there's also a massive effect, not on a deputy president, on a man, on a family. And that's the same whether one's name is William Ruto, or whether one's name is Joshua Sang, or whether one's name is anything. There are consequences. And, Your Honour, justice always, or to gain justice, to achieve justice, humanity must never leave us. A sense of compassion and empathy must never leave us. Of course, first and foremost, those that really have suffered. But, Your Honour, you also have all a serious and onerous responsibility, because a man's life, his good name, is in your hands. And these are not responsibilities to be glibly passed over in a soundbite in a press conference in the hoo-ha of ICC assertion. It really is something that carries with it, on a human level, serious responsibilities. Your Honour, I will play what and I apologize to the client, but I think it's relevant to play this. It shows a response that William Ruto gave just after he was named. And, Your Honours, I put it in the context. You've heard from him the high hopes he had of an independent investigation, high hopes he had that justice would be done. And this is just after he had been named by the ICC, by Ocampo. And, Your Honour, let's play that section.
But the people suffering the most out of all this, Mheshimiwa, and you've said this before, is your family.
I think the court officer is checking with the technical system. The difficulty we have is that there is a limit on the tape. There's a background tape that captures the proceedings, and it is time limited. So we don't want to have you talking into empty space. As far as that tape is concerned, that's what we're trying to avoid. How much time do you have? Do you think you'll need to wrap up?
Your Honour, this portion that I'll play before the break is 5 minutes.
Did you say you could go until?
Your Honour, this before the break, with your leave, 5 minutes I will seek to play, and then we can pause, break for lunch if Your Honour is so minded.
Right, we can do that.
I'm grateful. Your Honour, I would ask to play this tape. As I said, it's in the context of William Ruto, his own views just after he had been named by Ocampo.
Family. You're starting to feel the pains of that, or they are.
I don't want to discuss this because it touches on people who really don't understand the intrigues of politics and all this, what's going on. As I said the other day, of course, some of my family members cannot understand what's going on, and it is affecting them. I will do the best I can to protect them from this and to try and insulate them from the whole of this business, because they really have nothing to do with this, right? They really have nothing to do with this. My mother is already here. She came. I found her at home yesterday. And I mean, I don't know what to tell her. You know, she doesn't understand what is this whole Hague thing about, what is actually going on. My children are managing, you know, with a bit of difficulty. Yeah. But I guess that this process, when finally it comes to an end, I will be vindicated, and they will have some peace. Yeah.
Are you going to be stronger coming out of it, Mheshimiwa? Because, you know, the feeling I get is you're being dragged through the mud. You're being dragged through, and unfairly so. You say, will you come out of it stronger and a better person?
I think so, because I think being dragged through the mud is an understatement, Jeff. Mm. You know, you haven't walked around when everybody who looks at you says, oh, this is the fella. You know, you remember those 1,300 people? You remember the people living in camps? You know, that is not small time. That is not light. That is very, very heavy, especially, my brother, if you have absolutely nothing to do with it. You know, it's really tragic. And you find people you stood for and stood by making, you know, adding insult to injury by saying, oh, you know, me, I was detained. I was innocent, but I was detained. So William Ruto should go to The Hague, even if he's innocent. I mean, really. I mean, any responsible person, if an injustice has been committed against you, you wouldn't wish another person to go through another injustice. I think they should be the ones to say, I was unfairly accused. I do not want another Kenyan to go through what I have gone through. And I can tell you, Jeff, as I sit here, that whatever we have to do, we must do, so that no other Kenyan goes through what I'm going through or members of my family are going through. To be accused unfairly, to have an international tag on you that you are a criminal, you kill people, you caused people to lose their lives, you destroyed property, I mean, it's a terrible thing. But this is life, and there is no rehearsal. We got to go through it, and because we are innocent, that is the only confidence that we have, that when the truth comes out, we will then be able to be free people, to have learned from this experience, and hopefully we can help shape society in future to avoid the kind of pitfalls that we've gone through.
Will William Ruto have the last laugh in this?
If justice, truth, and fairness are the benchmarks, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
So can that be a good place to stop it? And
Indeed.
then we will resume 1 second.
All rise, veuillez vous lever.
I needed to announce that we're coming back at 2:30 to 4. Sometimes it's at 2, sometimes at 2:30. Today we resume at 2:30. Thank you.
All rise, veuillez vous lever.